Okay, Joe. Let's talk about your role at EOS. You are the Chief Commercial Officer, right?
Yep.
Now, was that role created for you or did you replace somebody?
No, this is a new position that was created. I wouldn't say it was specifically created for me, but it was a new role this year. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it could have been Joe, right? So what was the impetus to create the role?
So EOS is actually one of the fastest growing hotel company in the U.S., both as an investment company, but also as a management company. It's one of the few companies at scale that manages all of the hotels that they own. And because it grew so fast in the last 4 or 5 years, um, you're just kind of really busy trying to, onboard new hotels and, setting up some regional infrastructures to deal with, 5 or 6 hotels that were coming in here or there. Um, but there wasn't a real like centralized infrastructure that was developed to properly or better support our hotels. We today manage 51 hotels, own 40 of them or 41. And last year, I believe the company's goal was to try and set up a more centralized support in finance. So there was a lot of investment that went into that area. We hired a new CFO last year, and he's built out quite an impressive team to better support the hotels. And this year, the goal was to sort of do this something similar, but tackling the commercial organization, which vast majority of it was happening at the hotel level. So creating a centralized infrastructure to better support the commercial team on the ground.
So, revenue, sales, and marketing do roll up to you, right?
Yes.
Does anybody else roll up to you, or is that it?
Uh, well, so marketing is kind of a broad team these days, but yeah, so I guess that would also include e-commerce, digital marketing, and PR.
Yeah. And I mean, so how do you describe your commercial strategy? I mean, do you use the term unified commercial strategy, and does it look similar to other organizations?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are kind of on a journey to really putting together our unified commercial strategy right now. I would say typically what happens is we all have a budget number to hit, and therefore you go out, you look at each market segment and go, right, what are we doing to drive our performance at each one of these market segments? You put it all together during your budget review, uh, put together a 50-page deck where sales, revenue, and marketing, everybody contribute to pulling that together. Um, and then you kind of don't look at it for the rest of the year because that was all done in the service of we need to hit X amount for the budget that we're presenting. And so I guess the approach that we're trying to take right now, and again, I'm very new also myself in the current role. So we're rolling this out right now with our teams, which is rather than designing some type of initiatives or strategies in silo in service of a budget number, we should actually together identify uh, doing everything that we're supposed to be doing correctly. In other words, after you do all the basics are done correctly, uh, what is a one or two problems that we need to solve in order to get to the hotel to the next level. And then that idea is often a very simple idea. It might be something like, oh well, we've been losing share within 30 days of arrival, or oh, if we ran this hotel more like a hotel instead of an extended stay product, then we might do better. A simple idea like that everybody can rally behind and collaborate together between all those commercial teams to then come up with the strategies and tactics together to address that problem. And so if your commercial strategy becomes, I wouldn't say it detaches from your budget numbers, but you are putting together something that solves a very specific question, knowing that if we have solved that, then we know that we will get, hit budget or steal our share or, whatever. That if we do this right, the results will follow.
Yeah. I was going to ask you overall, how would you describe the problem your commercial team is solving? I think what you were saying there is like each property might have a unique problem for that property that needs to be solved. But I
Yeah.
mean, so if you were to take a step back, you're trying to pull everything together, overarching. How would you describe the problem that a unified commercial team is solving?
Well, if you really zoom all the way out, uh, we are really in the business of real estate investment, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're all here servicing the investors who have bought the hotel, invest in the hotel, hoping for some return on their investments, and we're providing a service, which is a management to help that owner realize, his or her return. And the valuation of these hotels are often driven by the multiples of an NOI, right? So if you really zoom all the way out, the problem that we're trying to solve as a commercial team is how do I maximize our revenue at the lowest cost possible so that we're maximizing the NOI. Uh, and when you put the focus on the NOI, lots of interesting conversations could occur. Things like your website traffic or social media followers or the coverage you're getting from PR or your OTA percentage, like all of those things become somewhat of vanity metric. And really, the only thing that really ever matters is how much of of those activities are contributing to the bottom line. And when you put the team focused around the NOI, you start having not only discussions on how we can drive more visibility and therefore revenue, but also talking about how much it costs to service all of those, or what are the roadblocks or conversion hurdles that are impacting our ability to drive revenue and all of those things. So um, the entire organization becomes a bit more strategic.
So how do you think a unified strategy differs then from traditional? Like I think a lot of hotels are still operating in silos, don't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the traditional way is essentially what typically happens, which is, hey, our hotel is either pacing behind or behind last year, or to our forecast or budget, or to the market share or something like that. And typically a leader asks the commercial teams, tell me what you guys are doing to solve this, right? And then the revenue team goes out and they might look at some stuff and come up with something, and sales team does the same, and marketing team does the same. um, and so the result of that is typically whatever the strategy and tactics that they're individually coming up with doesn't actually solve the overarching problem that the hotel needs to solve for. I mean, my favorite example, especially in my previous role where I was sitting in more on the asset management side, where you'd go through these monthly meetings with the operator, P&L meetings, and The marketing team is talking about, oh, we had, this amazing, great coverage, and the ROI on our marketing dollars was like 40. Like, look at all these amazing things. And then all right, great, amazing. Yeah. And then you get to the next page and look at the P&L, and the NOI is down 10% to
Yeah.
last year. It's like, well, what
Yeah.
happened? You just told me all these amazing things you're doing. Um, and uh, so the unified commercial strategy is really just contextualizing all of the effort and the things that we are all doing in our individual capacity to service a very single problem that we're all trying to solve, and just bringing that unity, that we could be down 10% in NOI this month, but that's okay. But everything that I just told you about was actually in the service of our numbers for 6 months ahead, because right now, actually, what we're trying to solve is that we need to build a base farther out or something like that, and therefore, what we told you 6 months ago should be impacting this month, and what we're talking to you about, everything wonderful we did last month, should actually be impacting further out. And it's not just the marketing, but sales and revenue all speak to the same vision.
Right. So to wrap up, I talked to a lot of CCOs executing a unified commercial strategy, and they all have the same problem, which is the data is everywhere. Disparate data, tech is siloed, and they spend hours each week profitable decisions. You're pretty new in your role, but are you starting to get a handle on your data situation? I mean, can you describe it for us?
Yeah, like I said, I am very new in my role. I would say that our data situation is pretty similar to everyone else's, which is that the systems and the types of data that revenue management looks at is different to what the sales team's looking at versus what the marketing team's looking at. And not only are the systems different, but also, within those departments, there are multiple systems that you're having to work with that all have different types of data that are feeding into it. So, depending on what your PMS, CRS, RMS combination looks like at your hotel, you might be getting a breadth of data that is amazing, and it covers A to Z of everything that you'd ever want to look at, or depending on what that tech stack looks like, the data you get back actually could be quite limited in scope compared to some of these other tech stacks. And so when you're operating like for 51 hotels with all the different tech stacks, you not only have issues with different departments looking at different numbers, but each department at each hotel having access to different level of data. So that definitely exists. And I think one thing that we are trying to do is sort of, bring all of that together, so that not only like creating a report that sort of connects the dots and joins up all of these disparate data into one sort of data warehouse is one thing, but actually getting the teams to actually look at that same data set together as a team is another thing. Just training them and getting in the habit and the culture of doing that. And that means every time we speak as commercial leaders with the operations team or finance team or the ownership, that we're always looking at the same set of data to speak. So that, I think, is sort of the journey that we're on, and quite frankly, I think is probably a journey that all the other management companies are on
Oh
as
yeah.
well.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The
Yeah.
thing that gets me is that we've been talking about this probably for like the past 10, 15 years easily, and we're
Yeah.
still in this situation.
Yeah.
But hey, at least I think it appears to be solvable now, more so than it was 10 years ago when it actually looked like an impossible task.
Yeah. Well, that's why they hired you, Joe. And when you
Try
solve
my
that
best.
problem, you let us all know how you did
Yeah.
it.
We'll talk in 5 years.
Well, I appreciate you talking with me, Joe. It's always good to hear what's going on in the minds of chief commercial officers like yourself. And congratulations on your new role. And let's stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Jason.